Hybrid editing made easy.
This hybrid photography vlog post is brought to you by ProShow.
Photodex.com.
Hi there, I'm Carol, and shortly I'll be joined by my friend Michelle, who recently purchased Lumix LX7, and she really likes it. She likes the quality she's getting from it, but she admitted to me that she feels like she's still using it like a point and shoot, and she really wants to know more about how to operate the camera as the piece of gear that it really is. You'll see that there's a slider, and it has MF for manual focus on the top. It has AF with a little flower. Little flower indicates you might be doing a close-up or a macro shot, or the center of a flower, and you want to get really close, and that's all you want in the frame. And then the bottom one is AF or autofocus. So you're best off always, of course, shoot the far off stuff in just straight autofocus. That's what that is. This on the top, where it says starts out with 1:1 and ends up with 16:9. So it's, yeah. Those are aspect ratios, and the easiest way for you to see what they do is to turn your camera on and put it on 1:1. There's a little indicator marker right up there on the top. Now look at the back of your camera, and do you see, what do you see? What shape is that? Square. A square. Just start moving it. Go to 4:3 and look at what happens on the back of the camera.
Oh, it gets wider. It
gets wider. Keep going. 3:2, and now go all the way to 16:9. What happened at 16:9?
It went
like a skinny rectangle, like the shape, like the whites. That's exactly it, and that's what that's for. It's what you're shooting anytime you do video. You're automatically shooting that, no matter how you have the camera set. Okay, but yes, that 16:9 is a wide screen. Anyway, on with our tour. The next thing you have is the aperture ring. So that's next out from the aspect ratio. Do you know what an aperture is? Okay, the aperture in the camera is the hole that lets the light in. So you can have holes letting in a tiny bit of light, or you can have a great big hole that lets in a ton of light. Okay, and the fun thing about apertures is they're kind of opposite what you would think. Here's how to think about it. You bake, right? Yeah. Okay, what's more? A half a cup of flour or a quarter of a cup of flour? Yeah. Okay. Half is 1/2, if you look at the fraction. Quarter of a cup is 1/4. Now get rid of the ones on the top in the line. Now you have a 2 and a 4. Now you know that the 2 means 1/2, and therefore it is bigger than the 4, which sounds funky. Apertures work exactly like that. Okay. They're actually fractions. So when you see 1.4, think of it as 1/1.4, which is way bigger than 1/8. Right? Right. Okay, so 1.4, which is what you see over here, lets the most light in because it's the big aperture. That's what makes this camera so special. A lot of cameras' biggest aperture is or lenses, I should say, is a 3.6. So 1.4, 2, 2.8, 4, 5.6, all the way up to 8. What we're really all about today, ultimately, is going to be that thing called exposure, which is a combination of how big or little the hole is and a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, so on the top of the camera, we have the on-off switch, which you have found. The little red button, which is your video button. That's how you take motion pictures. Okay. You have your shutter release, which is the silver button. The thing around the shutter release allows you to shoot wide, but not real close, or a lot closer, but you don't get so much in. You keep narrowing down. Okay. This is called the mode dial. And on it are all kinds of ways to shoot, from intelligent auto, which is the mostest automatedest everest. Yeah, like a button. But intelligent auto is going to do basically everything for you but pick the subject. Okay. Program gives you a little bit more control in intelligent auto. Aperture and shutter priorities, A and S, are going to give you even more control and still setting some things automatically. M is manual. You control everything but everything. And then there's motion picture. And then you have 2 custom settings, and we'll talk about custom settings if we get the time. We have scene modes, and what it means is it's pretty automated. It's going to give you the best settings for the scene that you've picked. Then there are the artistic modes, and I hope we have time to go over those because they are very cool. On the very center top, you have your mic. That's for when you're doing video recordings. That's where the sound is. So the implication is this would be bad.
Right.
Okay, you want to keep your fingers away. And then if you push the little black piece out, you have what's called a hot shoe. You know what a hot shoe is for?
No.
An external flash. Okay? So you put a flash unit on there, or I'm going to recommend that you look at some continuous lights. The other thing that this can be used for, this little slot here, you note there is no viewfinder on this camera. Everything is done through the LCD. But if you really wanted to be able to do that, you can buy a viewfinder that sits right on there. Okay. So then on the back of the camera, this ND focus, near and distant, it's for when you have the little sidebar in manual focus. You use this to actually get your subject in focus. You then also have this little dial. The dial is going to be how you set all sorts of things. And the other thing to remember about this dial is it presses in. And I don't know if you've ever done that.
No.
And I'll like be mentioning to you times when you'll want to press it in, and what it'll do is change the function. If it's now setting the aperture, you press it in, it'll change your exposure comp. You press it in again, it'll go back to setting aperture. So it allows it to be a multi-function dial. AE and AF lock, autofocus and auto exposure lock. The little green button is the playback button. It's how you see what you shot, whether it's a movie or a picture. And then we have the dial. The center of the dial is the menu set, so when you press that, you're going to get some menu options. The menu options that show up are dependent on what's up here. So you'll get different menu options depending on what you're showing on the top dial. There's a little button down at the bottom that says Q menu. It also has a trash can and a little backwards arrow. That's how to get out of things. So that's how you get out of the menu when you don't want to change a setting or save a setting, you just want out. Around the menu set are 4 buttons. The bottom button is how you're going to deal with burst rate and timer. The button on the right side, which says WB, is for white balance. White balance is the way the colors turn out in your pictures. And I don't just mean keeping people from having funny looking tans or, green faces, but just how pink your blouse is. It should look in the final picture the way it looks to our eyes here. And white balance will control that. White balance is determined by the light that you're in. And there are lots of built-ins. There's one for sun, there's one for shade, there's one for incandescent light bulbs, there's fluorescent, and the easiest way to pick, and let's just do it for grins, is press your white balance button.
Oh.
And just watch what happens. You should be, so go look at daylight, and just look at what you're seeing. And now just drop it down to cloudy. See how it changed a little? Drop it down to shade. Drop it down to flash. Drop it down to incandescent. Ooh! I use this setting, also known as tungsten. I use that setting when I shoot plays and theater because that ISO comes in a whole bunch of numbers, and I'm assuming that what you're seeing, what's your hit ISO? What's your, go all the way to the top? Oh, you're at auto. What's right under that? What's the number?
80.
Okay, so you've got 80, 100,
200, 400.
Okay, yours is set in f-stops. So every time you increase the ISO by one of those, it's like getting one more f-stop of light. So let's say your aperture is here, okay? And you go from 100 to 200 ISO, you just doubled it. You go from 200 to 400 ISO, you doubled it again. Now, it's not physically doubling it. It's doubling it by making the sensor inside the camera more sensitive to light. And you're thinking, well, then why would I care about an aperture? Why don't we just do everything that way? Because there's a trade-off. ISO comes, or ISO, it's also called ASA on some cameras. Anyway, it comes from the film days. And film has grain to it. You shoot a series of test shots. So you put a bunch of stuff. Some stuff with color, and some stuff that's going to make a bit of shadow. Just put it together somewhere and start shooting. 80, 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600. Just same picture. But, I mean, if you put it in P, it'll just take care of everything for you. You don't even have to worry about the rest. And then you go look at the pictures. And somewhere between 800 and 6400 or 3200, whichever the top end of this camera is, you're going to go, I don't want to shoot there. That's just not attractive. Because that grain, I mean, it's in faces, it's in eyeballs. It starts to blur things. And then there's this groovy function button that seems to allow you to, by default, set the autofocus area.
Wait, which button are you looking at?
The one on the left, sorry. ISO was up on the top, and then it's a function button, which means you can set it to do anything you want it to do pretty much off of the menu. Right now, it'll allow you to move where your autofocus area is. You have two buttons. One's labeled Q menu, and below it has a trash can and a backwards arrow. Backwards arrow gets you out of any menu you're in. The trash can you use to delete pictures when you're in playback mode. Q menu, again, very dependent. It's even more things. The quick menu is just that. It's for getting those things you use the most onto the back of the camera so that you can change them fast and go. ISP, it stands for display, like you would expect. And when you press it, now I've got none of those little icons, nothing at all. The next one gives me this little tiltometer. That's so that you know when you have your picture level. So that's like a leveler. Sometimes it's really important to get the horizon really straight. Next display has none of the icons, but keeps the leveler. And the next display brings you back to all your icons. Oh, and on the bottom of the camera, and I'm sure you've found all this already, you have a battery compartment with a battery and a place for your SD card. And then you also, of course, have your standard mount for a tripod. Also already discovered that if you leave your lens cap on when you turn the camera on, it very politely says, take the lens cap off and push a button. And it's because it really can't move. It's the lens can't come out like it needs to. And rather than the motor just grinding away until it dies, it just says, oh, the lens cap must be on. There's your flash.
Oh, yeah.
Hybrid editing made easy.
This hybrid photography vlog post is brought to you by ProShow.
Photodex.com.